Hello all of you little demons, Jules here for WhatCulture.com, and I've got a very special video for you today because I have been playing a lot, and I mean a lot, of the new video game Biomutant, and I finally have my thoughts in some form of order to share with you today. Now the question is this going to be the runt of the litter or the new evolution for action RPGs? Well, let's have a chat, shall we? As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and this is our review of Biomutant. So in 2017, a German gaming magazine known as Games Market posted an article detailing an up-and-coming title that was set to be a post-apocalyptic kung fu fable, before later that year being officially revealed to be Biomutant. It is a game that's become a little engine that could story, experiencing countless delays, setbacks, and even entire revamps. Yet this time period hasn't been one of rest for developers Experiment 101 and was more of a chance to let their wonderful and rather weird creation gestate as they tinkered with every facet possible. What this has resulted in is a title that is jam-packed full of content and features and is set in an exciting and vibrant world. However, as you might expect with such a fixation on mutating things to their extremes, there are a few times that it does wobble on its weird misshapen appendages, meaning that it doesn't quite stick the landing all across the board. However, let's begin with what Biomutant absolutely nails, and that is the concept of player choice. Straight out of the gate, players are afforded the ability to create a completely custom monstrosity that will serve as their furry avatar. From selecting a class that affects which starting loadouts, powers, and abilities they'll get, through to morphing the very skeletal structure of their creature, which then affects stat displacement and physical appearance, to choosing fur designs, colours, and elemental resistances, this is one of the most in-depth character creators going. It is at once hilarious and rather horrifying to see your creature's head balloon as you sink points into intelligence, or their limbs lengthen and all that meat get put on the bones as you go into agility and strength. And because of this granular nature, I would wager that no two creature-created beasts will come out looking the same. And this is just the tip of the Bioberg, my friends, when it comes to player choice, because at nearly every turn you're met with a myriad of dialogue options, quest resolutions, and endgame affecting questions, each of which are tracked by a literal light and dark system represented by two spirits who also offer their thoughts on your actions throughout. As well as unlocking new powers and abilities, your choices will actually come to reflect the lay of the land itself, and as you can ally with different tribes and factions, it could mean that some characters will offer aid or indeed refuse to help you should you come to them in a pinch. What this means is that it's very possible to play through the same game multiple times and emerge with a completely different outcome. And speaking of difference, I would wager that there are going to be no two characters that end up looking the same once you start applying the almost ridiculous level of loot that this game has into the mix. Within about 3 hours of playtime, I was carrying around more bin bags full of clothes that made it look like I'd robbed a charity shop, but that allowed me to explore the game's true gem, and that is the upgrade and crafting system. This system was a breath of fresh air for me because I'm a player who's constantly tired of having to forego a piece of armor or a weapon that I actually like in favor of a much uglier one that has slightly better stats, and Biomutant, bless its little heart, allows gamers like me the ability to upgrade their gear at benches dotted around the world to keep them competitive with even late game loot. So once I found an outfit that I actually liked that had a few add-ons to put in extra stat affecting buffs, that was me pretty much set. I played this game for about 30 hours, and after I'd found the outfit that I'd like, I maybe only changed it once or twice, just merely tinkering here and there to make it the best possible thing that it could be. Plus I looked fly as hell. And this all fits into this lovely gameplay loop of heading out into the world, exploring a rundown settlement, hoovering up loot, breaking down the stuff you don't need, empowering your weapons and armor, and then setting out once more, this time able to push further and further into the unknown. And you know what? Exploring the world of Biomutant is an utter joy itself, whether you do so on foot, scampering through the bushes, or on the back of a weird horse that has the face of a creature that looks like it's been ripped straight out of a Ghibli film, or you take to the skies, or you're in a giant robotic mech that can have a duck head for some reason, or you're just gliding around in the water. There's so many ways to traverse this massive, monolithic world that it actually becomes a joy in of itself. And no matter where you are, whether it's a rocky canyon, lush open field, or oppressive swamp, this game sings with a beautiful radiance and vibrancy. Because while your little critter might end up looking like a bit of a chewed dog toy, the environments sing with colour and are so varied that you'll be pushing over uncertain horizons in the quest for loot and things to shoot with utter glee. Yet there is one thing that is most definitely for certain, and that is that combat is going to be your daily bread and butter in this game. And it's lucky for Biomutant that it's actually pretty bloody good. As with the character customizer, your combat options are quite literally staggering. From guns to dual-wielding blades to mystical spell slinging, it's easy to get overwhelmed with just how many means you have to dispose your enemies with. And that's before you realise that each weapon and class gets its own unique combos that can be unlocked to turn your battles into bullet ballets. I found myself tweaking weapons and loadouts so much more than my actual armour and things like that, because there was so much to explore and enjoy, and I found so many hilarious combos as well. My personal favourite being, there's a spell that you can get that sprouts a mushroom in the middle of the battlefield. Now you might be thinking to yourself, why the hell would I want to do that? Well, it's a bouncy mushroom, so it launches enemies up into the air as well as yourself. So you'd run onto it, jump really high into the air, pull the trigger, which turns everything into slow-mo, and then unleash every bullet that you have got into the face of the enemies below you. That was utter bliss. And when people compare this to the likes of Devil May Cry, you can definitely see why they're doing that, because it's fast, it's frantic, and more importantly, it is very, very fun. Well, when the camera's not being an arse, that is. You see, while the world of Biomutant is beautiful in places, it's not a title without its flaws, and for every step it takes, it does seem to stumble on its wobbly, mutated legs. For a start, the emotional tone of this game is lacking considerably, and while I felt compelled to save the life tree from demise and indeed the world from destruction, I felt entirely less committed to avenging the death of my character's parents, and the reason for this is twofold. The first being that the setup of their deaths was introduced literally minutes before it happened, meaning that I have pretty much no emotional connection to them whatsoever, and the second part is they're called Mumsy and Poopsy. Now, doesn't that take off the emotional edge somewhat when they're called such silly, silly names? In fact, this naming convention goes out through the entire game, and it turns what could be a very serious game about environmentalism, about suffering. There's a lot of pain and real disturbing stuff going on in this world, and you make it so silly. When you've got the World Eaters, these massive monsters, they're referred to as fluffs. It doesn't seem as dangerous, does it? And for some reason, the game does this all the time. The emotional tone is just constantly on a seesaw of like, ooh, the world's going to be destroyed in environmentalism, and you definitely shouldn't pollute the world because you're going to destroy everything. Mumsy and Poopsy! Adding to the frustrations are how the character interactions just seem to go down the route of he wants to know why you killed his dog. Why the team couldn't have just lowered the volume of the character's speech and had the wonderful dulcet tones of Kevin Brighting translate over the top of this to save time and your sanity is something of a huge misstep, especially when considering the amount of dialogue in this game. Even the light and dark spirits are voiced in a kind of Saturday morning cartoon fashion, which again becomes grating, leading you to wonder why these actors, who are clearly putting in a lot of effort, were told to go so over the top in a game which otherwise details death, environmental destruction, and quite a lot of suffering. Unfortunately, Combat 2 suffers from some pretty obvious missing features, such as the fact that the camera just seems so much more focused on showing you your actions that it doesn't show you enemy placement very well. The amount of times that my amazing combo was ruined by somebody just attacking me from off screen where I had no warning in order to defend myself was just so high. Games like the Batman Arkham games, the Spider-Man video games, they understand that they pull the camera back when action starts to give you a fair playing field, quite literally. Here though, the camera's just like, whoa, look how amazing it was to slide under this guy's legs, only to then be chopped in the face by somebody off screen. It does inflict a lot of damage onto the power dynamic that this game is trying to go for. Annoyingly, while it doesn't show you the action when you need to, one thing that definitely was on show was the rather weak boss battles that this game has, especially against the World Eaters. Because thanks to attacks that are telegraphed for so long, I legitimately think that they started in 2017, each of these would-be big bads are reduced to pretty unremarkable conflicts. And it's a shame, because such foes are built up to be much more than they actually end up as. I feel my main problems with Biomutant lie at the fact that this game, if it was released in 2017, would have been heralded as the new evolution of the action RPG genre because of the fact that it is doing so much. There is so much content on here that would have been groundbreaking. But the problem is the fact that it's releasing in 2021 when other games have come along, not only introduced new ways of doing things, but almost perfected them in that instance. It now makes Biomutant feel very old. It feels like a game that is, while it is technically good in so many levels, it's just nothing new. There's nothing new that you haven't seen apart from the combat, and if they haven't nailed down few things like the fact that it doesn't have a lock-on button, it does priority targeting, and the weird camera angle, it does make things feel a little bit stunted. I wanted this game to be much, much better than it actually was. And don't get me wrong, I still really enjoyed what I played. It just was a few steps away from greatness. And I don't want to sound like I'm harshing too much on this game because there are a lot of things that Biomutant does right. It offers unparalleled customization options, a deep and hard-hitting combat system, and so many side quests and activities to take part in that it will be weeks before anyone can lay claim to having seen all there is to see. From taking on tribal bases to roaming the deep wastes in the hunt for new treasures, there is always something new to do or kill. And while there are a few rough edges here and there, this is an adventure game that defied the odds. It managed to get made. It fought tooth and claw for the right to even exist. And for that reason alone, it deserves your attention. It doesn't excuse the technical misgivings that it has, but there is a good game here, just under the surface. You're just going to have to work with it a little bit to get the most out of it. And whether or not you want to do that, well, that's entirely up to you. If I was to give this a rating out of 10, I would probably give it a 7 out of 10. It is definitely a good game, but just shy of being a great one. So that's been my thoughts on Biomutant. Let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below. Are you picking up this game? Are you excited about it? And if so, what character and weird powers are you going to give your furry little animal friend? Let me know about it down in the comments section below. And if you want to chat to me further, you can do so over on Twitter at RetroJ with a 0, or you can swing by Live and Let's Dice. It's where I do all of my streaming outside of work, and it'd be great to see you over there, my friends. Big love to all of you. Treat yourself with love and respect because you goddamn well deserve it, okay? And I hope you have a fantastic day, whatever it is you get up to, you massive ledge. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that. And I'll speak to you soon. Peace.